Bitcoin is trying to reclaim 107.2K as we kick off the new week. Now, if you've been following people on crypto Twitter, it seems like the timeline is relatively split. On one hand, we have people calling for the bear market already. On the other hand, we have people saying that we just need to tap into $98,000 before we can bounce and move higher. If there's one thing I know for sure in crypto, what likely happens is what most people aren't expecting. In today's video, we'll be talking about exactly this, going over the recent Bitcoin price action and what I think could be next in the upcoming weeks and months for this market. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. First things first, as you can see, Bitcoin is desperately trying to reclaim this key level. Now, the reason why 107.2K is so significant for Bitcoin is because this was the pivot that ultimately sent us to new all-time highs. So this would be a positive sign if we can start to reclaim this level. And as you can see here, today on this Sunday, we wicked below and now we're trying to go ahead and close above this level. Now, of course, we'll have to see how the daily time frame looks once that candle closes, and I'll talk about it in tomorrow's video. But on the weekly time frame, all of a sudden, things aren't looking that bad. I know a lot of people like blowing things out of proportion. The bear market has started, or we need to go much lower before we go higher. But honestly, sometimes it's best to sit on your hands and see what the price action gives us before making your next big move. Right now, if the weekly candle were to close like this, I would say that we have a high likelihood of getting a little bit of a pump starting in this upcoming week. Let's see how it plays out, but ultimately, if you've been watching the channel, you know that my base case, for longs at least, is that Ethereum will likely be outperforming Bitcoin. I have been pretty vocal about this. If the cycle is not over, I think that the highest risk to reward trade setup is for Ethereum and not for Bitcoin. Now, that doesn't mean Bitcoin can't make a brand new all-time high, but what it does mean is I put my eggs in the Ethereum basket at this point in time, especially as it pertains to trading. Now, if you're in my free community, I talked about Ethereum's sustained strength against Bitcoin because you can see here that Ethereum is actually still above its bull market support band, which historically holds a support before we get that pivot and move higher, versus Bitcoin actually broke well below it. And right now we are a few $1,000s below its own bull market support band. So to me, this just exemplifies how Ethereum has been holding strong despite the fact that everyone is getting extremely bearish at these levels. And because of this, I actually entered an Ethereum long. As you can see, I'm currently in this position and I shared it in my free premium group. By the way, if you want to join where I share my own personal trade setups, you do have that first link in the description down below. All you have to do is click this link, DM me the word premium on Telegram, and I would be happy to onboard you into my free premium group. Back to the chart, I still think that ETH will likely be stronger than Bitcoin at this point in time. Now, of course, Bitcoin determines the rest of the market. So if Bitcoin does go ahead and continues to drop lower, then naturally the rest of the crypto market will bleed, which is also why I am still in my Bitcoin dominance long trade. The only asset at this point in time that I can say with confidence that I think will be outperforming Bitcoin if we are to get a pump across the entire market would be Ethereum. The rest of the altcoin market could easily continue to bleed against Bitcoin. Now, I understand that's probably not what you want to hear, but if you're new to the channel, I have been extremely vocal about literally just holding Bitcoin and Ethereum and of course trading the rest of the market. Ultimately, let's see how this Ethereum position plays out, but I explained why I think ETH is looking stronger than Bitcoin. Now, I also wanted to go over the overall timeline because you can see a bunch of people are talking about bear market versus lower than higher. What if we were to just pump from here? I need to put that thought in your head. First, we have this. Just remember that it's the weekend and the past two Sundays were also green before both weeks were massive corrections and bloody. Maybe third time is a charm, but I'd be patient on celebrating early. And I do completely agree with this assessment. It's important to be a little bit careful here because we just had a massive bloodbath. You shouldn't be going max long. If you are trading the market, use a little bit less capital than you normally would be my not financial advice. So then we also have this. there's nearly 20 billion in Bitcoin short liquidations sitting around $110,000 to $126,000. And we can verify this on the charts, but you can see that on the weekly time frame here, there's a ton of liquidity to the upside. Of course, there's still some liquidity down here. However, for the most part, taking a look at this map on the 30-day time frame, there's around 10 times more cumulative short liquidation leverage in the market compared to cumulative long liquidation leverage in the market. If we are to enter a bear market, in my opinion, they would not make it this easy where everyone can just go max short and then all of a sudden the bear market is here. We will likely grab some upside liquidity even if we are in a bear market. Now I need to confirm this with you because I've also been vocal about my invalidation. Weekly closes below $98,000 to me would be the nail in the coffin saying that the bear market has started, and I would pivot my strategy to shorting relief rallies. But at this point in time, I told you, I am long on Ethereum and I am also longing Bitcoin dominance. The Bitcoin dominance one is a little bit of a side thing because regardless of whether Bitcoin goes up or down, I think that it will be outperforming the market. So this is a no-brainer trade in my opinion. And by the way, if you want to trade Bitcoin dominance, you do have that second link in my description down below. All you have to do is click here, sign up, email and password, and you're good to go to start trading on Bluffin, trading Bitcoin dominance, that is. But the point that I want to get across here is that a lot of people have a lot of opinions, including myself. So you have to go ahead and watch only the people that you truly respect in the space and try to match it with your own analysis as to what could be happening next. Now, if we start to lose $98,000, which seems quite a ways away from here, then at that point, as I said, I will be pivoting. But right now, I have to be honest. There's a lot of respected traders in the space that are calling for the bear market to start, or that we will likely get a flush to $98,000 before we move higher. But I have to remind you of something extremely important. If you've been watching the channel, when Bitcoin had this correction here, all the way down to around $108,000, myself and many other traders in the space were expecting us to get a flush down to these levels a few wicks before setting that all-time high. And what happened? Over many days, we essentially just chopped right at the bottom of the bull market support band, and then we exploded to the upside for Bitcoin, leaving a lot of people looking for longs, including myself, out of this current trade. And so I need you to consider that just because 98K is our bull market invalidation level, it doesn't mean that we have to necessarily tap into there before moving higher. There's a chance that this is it and we start reversing from here. And to reiterate my point, this is what that bottom looked like when we were at $108,000. You can see just sideways chop, 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 and ultimately this is what sent us to brand new all-time highs. Now, something else I wanted to cover here is then you have the vocal bears on the timeline. If I had to guess a scenario for Bitcoin, it would be this. It's hard to know the exact path price will take. I don't even care that much, but the direction is down. How can you say this with absolute certainty? In my opinion, of course, I think we have one last leg to this cycle, and I've been pretty vocal about that. This is the pattern. Down to around below $90,000, up above to 100K, then a massive crash down. I'm not sure what you think, but ultimately, this looks like a reasonable support level at this point in time, so I'm not exactly sure why you would think that the bear market starts. As I said, I will pivot my strategy completely if we start to lose $98,000. So until that happens, I am actually a bull here, and I like to personally see a lot of people calling for lower levels because, as you know on the channel, I am a contrarian trader. That is exactly why, seeing the recent outperformance for ETH against Bitcoin, I like to go long on ETH, and my position is currently sitting just over $30,000 in profit. This is about to be a pretty massive trade if it goes ahead and plays out. Now, something else I wanted to show you, fear and greed index. You can see that today we are now almost approaching extreme fear, and the previous close was indeed in extreme fear. And this chart as well, which is something that us crypto guys use, you can see again, we are in fear. Yesterday, extreme fear. Last week, extreme fear. Makes sense with the liquidation event, but the point is we are now in extreme fear and people are very, very scared that the bear market has begun. But here's the thing. The point that I want to get across is that you cannot know with certainty what will happen. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Yes, I am currently long Ethereum. I am also longing Bitcoin dominance. I also have the majority of my spot holdings. You have to make sure that you have key invalidations where you're willing to call it quits. At this point in time, I see no reason to be max bearish, as there is a ton of fear on the timeline, and this could be a very pivotal level to flip as support. 107.2K, that is. If we hold 107.2K, especially on the weekly time frame, at that point in time, I think we already start talking about potentially reclaiming this point of control, which you can see on the chart is actually the yellow line of this range that we've been in for quite some time. So if we start to reclaim this level, which finds us at 110, then we really start to have the conversation where we'll likely just go up and grab this wick, which is $112,000. To remind you, that is also another pivotal level because it coincides with one of the previous all-time highs. If we start flipping here, I mean, at this point in time, I would be max bullish. I guess what I'm trying to say in this quick video is no one knows for sure where the market could be headed next. I know a lot of people speak with tons of confidence, including myself, but I just trade the market that's in front of me. If we go lower and really lose the macro structure here, I will simply just pivot my trading strategy. That's how you should be operating in this market. Let the market come to you and adjust your strategy accordingly. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.